take a trip back in time with Millennial Memories, the podcast where Chris and Sean dive into the heart of 90s nostalgia, the music, movies, TV shows, and pop culture that defined a generation. So, slide a cheesel onto each finger and let's rewind to the best decades ever. Because it's time for Millennial Memories. This episode of Millennial Memories is titled Nintendo vs. Sega, Video Game Wars.
G'day, I'm Sean.
And I'm Chris, and welcome to the Millennial Man Cave for today's episode of Millennial Memories.
Big thanks to our AI producer once again, Slick Mick's been on the job.
Hi, hard at work. As per his introduction, today's episode's all about cheesels.
Here's some cheesels. We always have to have something for our introduction.
Cheesel.
I love a good cheesel. Now, cheesels are a popular brand of cheese-flavoured snacks from Australia, of course, and they're known for their distinctive ring shape and their cheesy, crunchy texture.
Cheesy goodness.
They were first introduced in 1971 by Kraft Food Australia. They're made from cornmeal, Chris.
Cornmeal, okay.
Apparently.
Okay.
And they've undergone a few changes over the years, but everyone remembers putting them on their fingers.
Or the whistle.
Or using them as a whistle.
Yeah,
that's what you do with cheesels. Apparently, according to Slick Mick's research, so who knows how true it is.
It would be correct, yeah.
Yeah. The boss said to the company men who were designing the cheesel, what should we call them? The boss said, just call them cheesels.
Genius.
Absolute genius.
Yeah.
Oh, incredible.
Cheesels.
With that blast from the past, let's see what's up.
What's up?
On Millennial Memories.
What's up? What's up?
On this episode of Millennial Memories, as usual, we're going to go diving headfirst into some millennial goodness.
That's right, Sean. We're going to kick things off with our top 5 favourite games. Then we're going to be taking a deep dive into the video game wars of the 1990s.
And then on Versus, we'll compare 2 iconic video game franchises. Then we're off to the Tuckshop to revisit some cheesy culinary memories. Mamma mia!
Mamma mia!
And then we'll share a masterful Australian story on Storytime.
Then it's time to crank up the Wibbles scope and the Sean-O-meter on Rewind. And then, of course, we're going to wrap up the show with some feedback and some questions on final thoughts.
But now, hot off the facts from Slick Mick, once again we have Facts First.
Facts first.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Now it's time for Facts First.
Alright, Slick Mick's given us our facts for the day. There are 2 lots of facts, essentially. The first one I'm going to do here, Chris, and it's about Sony and Nintendo's failed collaboration. Now, some people might know about it, some people may not. But in the early 90s, Sony and Nintendo were on the verge of what could have been a revolutionary partnership. So the 2 companies collaborated to create a disc-based add-on for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which we're going to call the SNES pretty much for the rest of the show, right? The partnership aimed to combine Nintendo's dominance in the gaming market with Sony's expertise in electronics and disc technology. Now, the project was called the PlayStation.
The PlayStation.
Yeah, note the pause.
Oh.
Note the pause. Not the PlayStation, the PlayStation. 2 different words, okay? So don't confuse them. So what was supposed to happen was they were supposed to bring CD-ROM technology to the Super Nintendo, allowing for more storage and advanced game designs. However, the promising potential and collaboration fell apart due to contractual and business disagreements. What they are? That's a secret. Don't know. In 1991, at the Consumer Electronics Show, both companies unveiled a prototype of the PlayStation. However, a few months later, Nintendo unexpectedly dropped Sony in favour of a deal with Philips.
Oh, Philips, yeah.
Rookie error.
Yeah, rookie error.
We all know what happened. Abandoning that idea was maybe not the best plan for Nintendo in some respects, because Sony went on to create the PlayStation, which we all know and love. It was great. However, Super Nintendo, when it died off, they did bring out the Nintendo 64. So it's a bit of a what could have been in gaming history. Yeah.
Missed opportunity, a big missed opportunity,
definitely.
I think.
Well, in a way, but they both landed on their feet, Nintendo and Sony.
They did all right in the end, didn't they?
Yeah.
The 64, the PlayStation.
Yeah, that's
pretty
right.
good.
All right, Chris, our second fact is more like a series of facts. We've got 6 Game Boy facts for you. Take it away, mate. What do we got?
Yeah, so this one from Slick Mick. So fact number 1. So in 1993, Soviet cosmonaut took a Game Boy, if you believe it, up to space. Apparently it orbited the Earth more than 3,000 times and actually sold at auction for $1,220. What do you reckon? Probably the only console to orbit the Earth.
I'd say so. It'd be the only one to ever go into space, surely. Well, maybe now there's been some other handhelds, but pretty impressive.
Well, this was 1993, so yeah, maybe since then. Second fact for the day on the Game Boy is there's actually a surviving Game Boy from the Gulf War barracks bombing. That apparently it's still in working condition. I think you've seen footage of this.
I have. It is messed up, but it does turn on and the screen does work. There you go.
Unbelievable. Fact number 3, the game Tetris. So this was a very popular game on both PC and the Game Boy, but the Game Boy, according to Mick here, is saying that it sold more than 35 million copies on Game Boy.
I believe that, and the reason being is because the Game Boys initially were packaged with Tetris.
Yeah.
So, bit of a cheat, but there you go. Fact number 4 here, Chris, is that the first Game Boy could run up to 30 hours on 4 AA batteries. That's no doubt because the screen only had 4 shades of grey and has no backlight. Fair enough. Fact number 5, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color sold more than the Atari Lynx and Sega Genesis, Mega Drive in Australia, combined with, together, those two consoles, 118.6 million units. So 118 million Game Boys got sold before the year 2000 when it was sadly discontinued. Last fact for the Game Boy facts, number 6, the Game Boy had a heap of accessories. It did. It had a camera, it had a printer, you could hook up link cables, but I think the best accessory was the Booster Boy, the ultimate accessory for the Game Boy. We have one here in the Millennial Man Cave, and
check
Chris is he's holding it up for anyone watching on YouTube. That thing is obnoxiously large. Because, you know, the first thing you want to do when you get a portable handheld game is make it almost impossible to be portable or handheld. It's enormous.
It's like a brick, like carrying a brick around.
It's like a spaceship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Game Boys going into space, it's like a spaceship. But anyway, all right, I think it's time for our top 5s.
You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep
Now it's time for a cheeky top 5.
Thanks for that introduction, Mick. This is our top 5s. What we're going to do here is we're going to rank our favourite nostalgic or retro video games, Chris. We're going to go from 5 to 1 as we always do, but there are some specific requirements for this one. So the requirements of this top 5 are that the games were released for home consoles and were available here in Australia between a specific date range. We've gone from July 1987, which was when the Nintendo Entertainment System was released in Australia, and November the year 2000, which is when the PlayStation 2 was released in Australia. So basically we're going from 87 to 2000. Now, the NES was released in the States a bit earlier than that. It was released in 1985. So some of the games may have been out in other territories before they were out in Australia, but we're talking about released in Australia between 87 and 2000. That's the specific requirements for the top 5. So I'm going to go first with my top 5, and I'm going to start at number 5, and it's a draw.
It's a draw.
I feel like I'm cheating already, but it is what it is, right?
It is.
So, Jurassic Park. No surprises there. No. Jurassic Park. Now, I've got Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo, and I've got Jurassic Park on the Sega Mega Drive. Both made by Ocean, and both red hot games, both released also in 1993. But each version's actually quite different. I couldn't split them because they were just so rad, basically. So I'll talk about each one briefly. Blue Sky Software made the Sega Mega Drive version, and it is basically a game where you can either be Alan Grant or a Velociraptor.
Who doesn't want to be a Velociraptor?
Right. I mean, the Alan Grant version is fun, but you just want to be a raptor and eat people, right, don't you? Isn't that what you want to do?
Yes.
Alan. So that's the Mega Drive version. It's great. Very hard game, though. Difficult. It
was, It was a really tough game.
It was a tough game. Yeah. And then you've got the Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo, which was essentially a top view of Alan Grant running around the park, having to solve puzzles and things like that and do certain missions. Pretty cool. It also had a section where you would walk into a building and you would be confronted with a raptor or a Dilophosaurus and they'd attack you. So it was like a first-person shooter in a cartridge game. Very rare for that time. Although those kinds of games existed on PC, they didn't exist as a home cartridge, a home console game. So both Jurassic Parks in at a tie for that one. Number 4.
What do you got?
I've got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4.
What a cracker.
Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo. Released in 1992 by Konami, based on, of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. It was a cracker of a game. The Turtles, they travel through time, and you've got to stop Shredder and a busted testicle.
Krang. That
Krang.
is the busted testicle.
It's known for vibrant graphics, fast-paced action. It is really cool. It's a great 16-bit game. It's expensive. It's hard to get your hands on a cartridge of that these days. My cartridge, unfortunately, is long since gone. I don't have a copy anymore, which is a bit of a shame. But a real cracker. Turtles in Time, highly recommend it. You get to go and fight against the Technodrome itself. That's cool, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, really cool game. Number 3 on my list, I have a light gun game called Duck Hunt. Say it slow.
Absolutely.
Don't say it fast,
Yeah.
especially in an
Be
Australian
careful,
accent.
kids.
Be
Be
careful.
careful.
You could come unstuck there saying Duck Hunt a little too quick.
Yeah.
Released in 1984 in other territories, obviously 1987 in Australia because of the NES release date. One of the most iconic light gun games for the NES with the Zapper gun. The Zapper is... I'm going to get the Zapper. Hold on, everybody on the
Hold that
podcast.
thought.
Just hold a second. But
It's a bit of a rarity.
it is
There
actually...
wouldn't be too many of these things floating around anymore, I
I've
think.
got to have one somewhere here, surely. Here we go. Here is a Zapper. So if you're not watching on YouTube, you won't be able to see this, but I am holding up the original
Does it
Zapper.
still work? Do you know?
It
Have
still
you tried
works. It
Yeah,
still
okay.
works. It's fantastic. Light gun games work essentially by light coming from the screen. So the screen would flash, and wherever the object you're shooting is, that would be a specific flash of light, and that's how it would register a hit. So you had to use a CRT television to do that, which is cathode ray tubes for all the
Old
major
school,
nerds.
very
But
old school,
Duck
yeah.
Hunt was great, and everyone remembers the dog that
The
would
dog.
pop up when you'd miss and laugh at you. What
That
an
cheeky
asshole.
dog, yeah.
What an
A-hole.
asshole. And there was always that rumour that you could shoot the dog.
Not possible, I don't think, was it?
No.
What? Wasn't just... Yeah.
Trust me, I tried.
Tried. I think everyone tried. to shoot
Everyone
that dog.
tried. He's laughing at you. You're thinking, you piece of shit. Anyway, you also had clay shooting. I don't think anyone played clay shooting.
I don't
did
think
they?
anyone
If you
played
played
that.
clay shooting on Duck Hunt, leave us a comment and we'll laugh at you. Number 2 on my list, following on from Duck Hunt, is another NES classic that everybody knows and everybody loves. It is Super Mario Brothers. That's my number
It's
2
the
there.
game for Nintendo.
Released in 85 worldwide, but 87 here again, as I said about the previous game. A landmark platformer, right? If you don't know what Mario looks like, then you're probably not a human being on this earth. One of the greatest, released by Nintendo itself in the black box style releases. The first lot of games that were released for the NES were all in a black box design. And I've got most of those up behind us here in the Millennial Man Cave. The story is that Mario has to rescue Princess Toadstool from Bowser and travel across the Mushroom Kingdom. There's the movie, there's so many games. Everybody knows Super Mario Brothers. Tight controls, creative level design, catchy music. The music's...
Yeah, everyone knows the music. Once
Yeah.
you hear that little...
It's
Yeah.
like, I reckon 60% of millennials had it as a ringtone at some point.
yeah.
It's just one of those games, right? But it's not my number 1, despite it being so
What
iconic.
is your number 1, Sean, and why?
Wibbles, my number 1 is that I'm going for real nostalgia, personal nostalgia. It is Killer Instinct
We have quite the affinity with this game, don't we?
on the Super Nintendo. It's an arcade banger, fast-paced, combo-heavy, ultra fighting game developed by Rare and published by Nintendo. Originally, the arcade port, just an arcade game, was ported to Super Nintendo in 1995. And when I got my original Super Nintendo back in 1995, that my parents bought, thanks Mum and Dad, it was the built-in or the packed-in
set,
game.
yeah.
So you would get a console with a game, and so Killer Instinct was the one I received. There are some cool characters: Jago, Orchid, Fulgore, Saberwolf, Riptor, Spinal.
Just to name a few.
Mate,
yeah,
I know
yeah.
them all. I've slayed on that thing.
Cinder, he was the main
Cinder
thing,
was
yeah.
good. He had a
was
good
the
theme
main
song.
man, yeah.
Speaking of theme songs, you also got a CD called Killer Cuts with your purchase of Killer Instinct back in the day. And that CD...
By far the best game music, I think, that ever produced, right? Like, as far as a total game, yeah.
Robin Beanland and Graham Norgate are the composers of that. Look those two up. They have done a lot of great work, but nothing compares to Killer Cuts. What a Brilliant soundtrack. Some of the best shit you'll ever hear. The song, The Instinct, the theme song. Oh, just
Ball
rad.
terror.
Just a
Absolute
ball terror.
yeah.
That's my number one. Very nostalgic for me. Killer Instinct.
Love it.
Red hot. Chris, hit me with your top 5.
All right, let's kick it off here. So coming in at number 5, I have Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So this one blazed onto the scene in 1992.
We got it there? We've got it here in the Millennial Memories.
Yeah, we have a copy of it
for our
right
YouTube
there.
viewers.
So this one blazed in, as I said, on the scene in 1992. Of course, it was called Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and which built on the original game. You know, larger levels, and also this is when we saw the introduction of Sonic's sidekick Tails. If you remember Tails, it was like a little fox with 2 tails, and he used to fly. It was a pretty cool character they introduced. So Sonic helped cement Sega as a major player during the 16-bit console wars.
More on that later.
Yes, and it remains one of the best-selling games for this system. So, huge game back in the day, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic and Tails. And then there are other variations of that, I think.
Yeah, with Knuckles and all the rest of it, yeah. But Sonic 2 was definitely the game changer.
It was the game
It's
one,
a classic.
Punching in at number 4, Punch, was Mike Tyson's Punch-Out on NES. So this was originally released in 1987. This classic boxing game combined fast reflexes with pattern recognition. So what pattern recognition was when you fought someone, there was an actual pattern they followed. So if you worked it out, you could beat them basically. That was pattern recognition.
That's what Jake Paul did to Mike Tyson. his pattern was this. His pattern was this. Stand there and wobble.
Yeah, what
a shame. What a shame that
it was. Yeah, it was hard to see Tyson go down like that.
It was tough to watch, mate.
Such an iconic guy from our whole childhoods anyway.
Yeah.
So Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, basically players took on the role of Little Mac. If you remember Little Mac, he was a little skinny guy.
Not Big Mac.
No, Little Mac. Battling a cast of memorable opponents like Glass Joe and King Hippo on the road to a showdown, of course, with the infamous and one and only Iron Mike Tyson himself.
The baddest
at the end.
man on the planet.
And so this made it was a standout game for the NES. Was Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, classic
Good
game.
one. Good
choice.
choice.
Look it up. Yeah, good choice. So
Yeah.
coming at number 3, I've got the iconic Donkey Kong Country on SNES, which we have right here.
Here it is.
So this one was developed by Rare and released in 1994. Donkey Kong Country wowed gamers. At this time, you've got to put it in perspective, with its then revolutionary pre-rendered 3D style graphics. So it's a side scroller, but the backgrounds and the way you scrolled through the game was quite different to anything before it. Also here, and on a creative level, design made it a platform classic. So really, it was the look of the game and the feel of the game, the mechanics really. So the game revived the Donkey Kong franchise, and it helped extend the SNES's lifespan deep into the 90s.
Was it the King of Kong?
It could have been the King of Kong and a fistful of dollars, perhaps. It could have been. That's a documentary you might want to look up, guys.
Another good one.
Yeah, fistful of quarters. Coming in number 2, legendary game is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time on the 64. I remember spending countless hours with my younger brother punching through this one. So this one is considered by many to be one of the greatest games ever made. So considering the era it was made and the platform and the storytelling, Ocarina of Time launched in 1998 and brought the Zelda series into full 3D. So that was one of the big selling points of that game. It was the first real game where you could play in 3D, explore basically like a virtual world.
Yeah.
It also had cool music, and really the rich storytelling, I think, is what made that game so iconic.
Yeah.
So this really
It's robust. Hey?
It was.
There's
Yeah.
just so much to
There was
take
so
in.
much. Yeah, it was in such a big game as well.
Yeah.
It wasn't like your typical Street Fighter or something where you just went through levels. It was quests, and if you had to do certain objectives. So it was one of those first games that you really had to do C to do B to do A.
And you could miss something and still progress through the game, which became a thing that's common now. But back then,
it was so uncommon.
you had to do A to Z.
Exactly,
You couldn't skip a thing, but you could in that one.
It was.
That's a good one.
It was great story. So really, that was set the standard for all action adventure games to follow.
Yeah, exactly. What's your number one, Chris? What do you got?
Number one.
Best of the best.
The best of the best. I would have to say it was my personal favourite back in the day. and this is GoldenEye 007, released on the 64. So this one was released in 97, GoldenEye 007. It wasn't just a successful movie tie-in.
The movie was good.
The movie was good. It was probably my favourite James Bond, to be honest. I'm a big Bond fan. Yeah, it was probably my favourite.
Okay.
This game revolutionised the first-person shooters. Its campaign blended stealth and action, but it was the 4-player split-screen multiplayer that really turned it into a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
So it was one of the first games where you could have a split screen with 4 players, you'd have your 4 controllers plugged in, and you could all battle each other through multiple different stages. First real game of its time to do that.
And in Australia, that was kind of before people started doing the LAN parties and having PC...
It was.
Playing on a PC against each other. So it sort of predates that. It was the precursor.
So it wasn't just the iconic multiplayer that made this game so popular. It was also the ability to play characters like Oddjob, which made it really a gaming legend. So
what's his name?
Oddjob.
Not Hand
No,
Job.
not Handy. It's Odd. It's Oddjob.
Good.
Yeah. So
What if you get an odd handy?
that's a story for another day. So
We're so family friendly on this thing, aren't we?
We are. So we'll stop it there. And so that leads us into our next segment.
Oh, yeah.
Let's dive a little bit deeper and introduce the next segment for us, Mick.
Now it's time to take a deep dive.
Okay, let's do a little deep dive. Sean, do you remember the console wars of the 1990s? We're going to do a little throwback to the console wars.
Very much so.
For you guys out there, so back in the 1990s, there was a massive console war going on between Nintendo and Sega. So there was a real fierce rivalry between those two companies, which defined much of the gaming landscape. So at the core of this battle were the two major consoles. It was the Super Nintendo, the SNES, which we have one right here, and which was released by Nintendo back in 1991, and the Sega Genesis, which was called the Mega Drive here in Australia. So that launched in 1989. Sega positioned itself as an edgier, more rebellious brand targeting older gamers with aggressive marketing and the iconic characters like Sonic, Sonic the Hedgehog. They also played up on the Genesis' superior graphics and processing power. So that's where they really try to market it and try to upscale it to other people and say, well, this is a better product, step away from the Nintendo. It's
adult. This is a kid's console, the Super Nintendo, but this is Mega Drive's the real deal.
Absolutely. So meanwhile, Nintendo, on the other hand, they took another path. So they really were more family-friendly orientated, I guess, and they focused more on the iconic franchises like Super Mario, The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid. Nintendo also capitalised on its long-standing reputation for quality games and innovation.
So the Sega Genesis, as it's called everywhere but Australia, basically, in the UK, I think they call it a Mega Drive there too, was released on October 29th, 1988, and in Australia it was actually released 30th of November 1990. Now, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or the SNES, was released on August 23rd, 1991 in the US and July 3, 1992 in Australia. And the rivalry between Sega and Nintendo was marked by memorable marketing campaigns. Now, we didn't get this in Australia, but we know about it. Everybody knows about it. The slogan, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. It's like, wow.
That was
salt in the wound.
That was quality marketing, wasn't it?
It's a direct attack, isn't it? Like it's brutal.
A little bit of salt thrown in.
Yeah,
there you go.
Brutal. Nintendo, it dominated the market, coupled with strong third-party relationships, ultimately helping it to maintain a lead for most of the 90s. The 16-bit era did see Sega take a brief lead, but the rise of the dark horse that came out of nowhere, Sony PlayStation in the 90s, and Sega actually fucking things up quite a bit with their Sega Saturn and the Sega Dreamcast. Actually, they're two consoles I don't have. I wonder why. It just led to a shift. And by the end of the 90s, Sega exited the hardware business, leaving Nintendo as the primary player in the console market, although they both did continue to shape the future of gaming in different ways. Definitely Nintendo smashed through with the 64, but the PlayStation, the dark horse.
That absolutely dominated when it came on the scene, didn't it?
It did.
It destroyed them both, really.
Well, I mean, Sega Saturn and the Dreamcast, name some great games. Name some. I can't.
There was
The X-Men
yeah,
ones were good. I said that,
yeah.
I think, in our first or second podcast. But
I
hey,
wanted it to be good, but it just didn't work. I don't know why it didn't work. It just didn't work.
and it was a hard transition for kids to go from the cartridges that you spent all that time just trying to blow dust out of to the CD-ROM, CD game, because they were so much more expensive.
They were, yeah.
It cost a lot more.
Yeah, that was probably it. The cost.
Yeah. The hardware failures of the Dreamcast when it got released in '99. Again, who owned a Dreamcast, Chris?
Nobody, yeah. I couldn't tell you anyone that owned one of these things.
Couldn't afford one.
Couldn't afford one.
$4,000 a pop or something.
And the game was $2,500. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you got one, and I didn't know of any that was sold, but you didn't get a package game either, so you probably had to buy a game.
Well, I think
on
that
top
was
of
the
it.
other thing, right? When you bought like a SNES or something, it would come as a package deal. Remember? That was a big thing.
And
too.
you're not getting that with your
with your $8,000 console.
$8,000 Dreamcast in '99. Too late by then.
Yeah.
Ship and sail for Sega.
It's gone.
Having said that, Nintendo wasn't all smooth sailing for Nintendo either. If you remember the Virtual Boy.
The Virtual Boy.
You probably don't.
No,
Most people don't. A red diabolical mess you put over your eyes, and you can see just black and red, and it was 3D, and
Okay.
it was a fucking shit show. Awful.
It sounds it.
Cannot recommend. But that was their failings. But nevertheless, at that point, it was really only down to two again. So you had Sega was gone, Sony, Nintendo, killing it. Having said that, Sega still did arcade games, really good ones too. Some of the best. And speaking of the best, let's go to a top 10.
Now it's time for a top 10.
In this top 10, we're going to be looking at the top 10 highest selling consoles of all time. So starting at number 10, let's look at the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES. So units sold, 61 million sold, and the release year was 1983. Here's a prime example of one right here. A couple of quick facts. So it revived the gaming industry after the 1983 crash, and it introduced Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and set the standard for home console gaming.
A classic. One of the best consoles. Yeah. I mean, we got it in 87 here. I know it was 83 everywhere else, but took a little longer.
Tons
like it
of
does in
games.
Australia.
Yeah.
So many good games. One of the best.
Yep.
Number 10. Right. What's number 9?
Number 9. Coming at number 9, we have the Nintendo Game Boy, the Game Boy Color.
Well, Game Boy and Game Boy Color.
Color.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a Game Boy.
We've got a Game Boy. That's fine. Units sold, 81 million. Wouldn't mind a slice of that little pie. Ooh. Release year for this was 1989 for the Game Boy, and the Color come in 1998, just a couple of years later. Couple of facts: long battery life and a strong game lineup, Pokemon, Tetris, etc. The Game Boy Color added color graphics. It wasn't the 4 grayscale that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And the backward
the compatibility,
enhanced value.
Definitely was cool because you could play the cartridges for this one in the color. That was the big, and I think they had sort of a, when you put them in, it wasn't just grayscale. When you played them on the color, it converted them to color. But I just want to say something about this console. So for those who are just listening and not watching on YouTube, I have a Nintendo Game Boy in my hand, and it's the original Game Boy, and it's a DMG01. That's the model number. Now, I don't know if people know this, but a DMG01 is now used as an instrument in a thing called chiptune, where people use the 8-bit sounds and they make them into songs and they use them to make music.
Wow.
So this is not just a game console now. It's
much
a fucking
more.
musical instrument.
It's much more than that.
Isn't that incredible?
It is. Yeah.
Google the shit out of that. You won't regret it. Well, you might.
There's a fact.
And if you do, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Number 8. What do we got?
Rolling in at number 8, it was one of the dark horses of the time, was the PlayStation Portable, the PSP. Units sold, 82 million. Release year was 2004. We don't have an example here, but give us a couple of facts, Sean.
It's the first handheld that Sony put out, and it had high quality graphics. It actually did, and it looked really cool. And God of War, Chains of Olympus was its big game. I didn't have a PSP, but I do know people that didn't, and it was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool when it got released. Yep.
That's a lot of sales too.
It is a lot of sales. Yeah, coming in number 7. No surprise here with the Xbox 360. So units sold 81 million. Release year 2005. So getting on 20 years from the original Xbox 360. Couple of facts. So popularized online console gaming with the Xbox Live. So that for everyone who probably knows that, you signed up and you could play a game, all your friends in games online. So that was a pretty cool feature they introduced. The major exclusives were Halo 3 and the Gears of War series. Again, big franchises come out on this machine, and it did face some hardware issues. Red Ring of Death when it got to the end of its life, but they recovered. Actually, one of my friends' machine had the Red Ring of Death, and it was a painful demise.
I mean, that was Microsoft coming into it with the original Xbox, and I think a lot of people had the original one. I actually do have an Xbox One, the Xbox, not the original, but Xbox One, and it's just in another room. It's not in the man cave. It's in the lounge room, actually. It actually gets a fair run around this place.
That's a flogging.
I'm going to do number 6 here. The Nintendo Wii. Sold over 101 million consoles, released 2006. It was revolutionary when it came out. Motion controls and had mass market appeal. The Wii Sports game, huge, because it was a pack-in game. There seems to be a theme here, Wibbles.
They packaged it and they sold it well. That's what they did. That's what Nintendo did well.
I have here in the Millennial Man Cave, here is a Wii for our viewers. It's a white Wii. You can jailbreak these to be able to put any game you like on it using emulation. And I've done that. This one has a fuck ton of games. In fact, it's got games that you don't even want to play.
Does it have Cheetahmen?
We'll get there. That's coming up too, people. So Nintendo Wii, really cool console. I remember making the, what are they? Nintendo Mii, M-I-I, the little avatar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool at the time. I mean, we're talking 2006. We're talking nearly 20 years ago, Chris. But anyway.
It's number 5? A lifetime ago. Number 5 was the PlayStation, the PS1.
The OG.
The OG. Look at this thing. Hey?
I've got one here. Whoa. Here's a PlayStation 1. It's
insure that bad boy for a lot of money. Units sold 102 million. Release year 1994. There you go. Throw back to 1994. Couple of quick facts. So it was Sony's debut console. As we brushed on in the console wars, Sony come in with this bad boy. It was home to some groundbreaking titles like Final Fantasy, the Metal Gear Solid games, huge games again, and helped transition gaming into the 3D era. So it really picked up and sort of elaborated on what Nintendo had done.
It overtook the 64 and knocked it out of this list, actually. It's not on the list, unfortunately, the 64, but
it did a good job. Yep, the PS1. Big brother coming in here. So coming in at number 4 is the PlayStation 4, the PS4. Units sold 117 million, released year. That's 2013. Couple of facts. So known for strong titles like the Spider-Man, the God of War. The God of War series is huge. It's gone all the way through to the PS5. Emphasis on social and streaming features. Again, so like the Xbox, really had that online sort of the gaming community. And outside of Xbox, one competitor by a wide margin. So it was, it come in and dominated the PS4. What do we got at number 3?
Oh, just on PS4 though, and those games, Xbox One, like I said before, they're all well and good. But I tell you what, you can't beat the cartridge games. And the reason I say it is because when you get these consoles, these new ones, you buy them, and then what happens, Wibbles? You can't just put a game on.
No.
You got to sit there for 3 hours while it updates some bullshit software that you don't even know you need.
4 hours.
So I don't have.
Frustrating.
I mean, I'm pulling out old consoles for those that are watching on YouTube, and we're looking at them and we're admiring the.
It was plug and play. You put it in and you play. You play. You're not waiting.
The world has turned.
It has, yeah.
It has turned.
I mean, like we're saying, the cinematics and the graphics are incredible these days, but it is frustrating. You put a game in, you got to wait 3 hours to play the thing. It's annoying.
Well, here's a game console you can do both. At number 3, Nintendo Switch. Got a Switch here. Look, I like the Switch. I think it's a cool little handheld, and I think it's cool that you can dock it and it can do its thing. 152 million.
Yeah.
I know the new one's come out just now, and that might end up in this sort of list as well. 2017 this came out, so we're getting up to 10 years now.
Yeah, it's getting close.
And again, it's a hybrid console. So it's portable, like, you know, you can take it anywhere, and you can plug it in on your telly at home, which I think is pretty cool.
I think that's what made it, especially for kids to carry them around. It was a smart move, I think.
And then it's going flat, so you plug it in and play it on the TV. I think that was a really good idea. Smash hit games, Animal Crossing, Breath of the Wild, and again, even now they're still in shops. You can still just go and buy one, and they'll become a little cheaper because of the new one. And you watch the skyrocketing sales again, so it'll burst through with more of those. What's number 2?
Number 2 is the Nintendo DS. Units sold, again, 154 million of these things were sold. Release year was 2004. Wow, facts. Well, this was some of the facts here. The dual screen with the touch screen innovation. So that was a pretty cool innovation that they introduced there. Popular for games like Pokemon, Brain Age, Mario Kart, and huge appeal for the casual and global market. So it was,
it's an easy to play kind of thing.
Put in your pocket. It was simple,
and it's only small,
tiny, light. Yeah,
it is very light. Very light, very cool. All right, I'm going to go with the big one. The number one highest selling video game console of all time, with more than 160 million units sold.
Wow.
Released in the year 2000, we did mention it earlier. It is the PS2.
It's the king of the kings.
It's the king. It's the winner.
Yeah. It's the Royale with cheese, even.
Best-selling console of all time. Here's one here.
Mr.
It's
Popular.
heavy.
Yeah.
It's a heavy.
I think you forget how
it's a big boy. It's a big boy. Yeah. Look, it played DVDs, right? And at a time when people moved away from VHS and DVD became the thing, that was a selling point. You could play your DVDs and your games
all in the one box, right?
It had a household like utility feel. Like it was not just a game console, but it was a device that would play movies. You could listen to music on it as well. You could put your CDs in there. Iconic games, all the Grand Theft Auto series, Final Fantasy series, just dominated. Right?
And then
it wasn't even a fight. Stop the fight. Actually, no, don't stop the fight.
There is no fight.
Let's start a fight and go to versus.
Fight on. It's time for versus.
Fight. Beauty. Thank you, Mick. In this installment of Versus, we're going to compare two of the most iconic video game franchises of all time. Now, you might think it's going to be Mario and Sonic, which that's a cool comparison, right?
But you would be wrong.
You would be wrong. They're great characters, and we think that they're rad, but that is something that's been done probably a million times over.
Where are we going?
This may have been done before as well, but we want to go do something a little more violent.
A little more violent.
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
We're the cool kids.
We are.
So we've gone for Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat. So we have Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
And of course, the mighty Mortal Kombat. So let's get ready to rumble here. Let's pit Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter, and let's see who comes out on top.
All right, I'm going to summarize Street Fighter, and specifically Street Fighter 2, which is the main Street Fighter home console game that we had as kids and we played. So Street Fighter 2 was released in February 1991. It's called Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior, but it was released initially in arcades by Capcom. I remember playing it at my local football club, rugby league club. I used to play Street Fighter The World Warrior all the time. The very first scene, the very first thing you see is you just see two dudes and one just punches one dude right in the face. And as a child... That's fucking rad. Yeah. Like, you're in on that all the way. Because you think, yeah, man.
Here's my $2. I'm in.
So you're paying it. But then in July 1992, the Super Nintendo port was released, and that made it a home console job. Everyone loved that. 92 to 94, it released a bunch of different Street Fighter spin-offs. There was the Champion Edition, Hyper Fighting, Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, that's Super Street.
Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Yeah. What was the difference? I didn't know what the difference was.
They had different colour schemes and a few different characters, but overall, kind of the same premise because it was so good, right? Earnings and commercial success now generated over $10 billion in revenue. That's been adjusted by Slick Mick for inflation, just so you know. And that includes the arcade and the home console games. It became one of the highest grossing video games of all time. No shit, Sherlock. Of course it did. The SNES version alone sold 6 million units, making it one of the system's top sellers. No doubt. There are some great characters, very memorable characters.
There were some very memorable characters.
Ryu, or Ryu,
yeah.
or Ru. Depends on how you want to pronounce it, and depends on which part of the world you're from. Huru. He was a Japanese karate fighter. He's the main character, right? Ken is his American rival and friend. They're like brothers, but not brothers. I don't know. There's a story. Chun-Li, Chinese martial artist. She kicked fuck out of you, basically. She was the first prominent female in gaming, or fighting games. Oh, that's true. That's true. Guile, he's a US Air Force officer seeking revenge, and he had a red-hot haircut, that big blonde.
Red hot.
And he'd comb it.
Red hot, yeah.
Yeah, cool. E. Honda, sumo wrestler from Japan.
He was pretty mad.
Yeah, he was pretty mad. Blanca, a fucking monster from Brazil.
And he's electric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to him. I don't know. If you know the backstory,
I think he
listeners-
fell in the same pot as the Joker when he turned. I think that's what happened. Yeah.
Is that a thing? Is it?
Yeah. I think that's what happened.
I thought he got bitten by a radioactive mosquito. Anyway, Zangief, Russian pro wrestler. That's cool. He does some pretty cool moves, suplexes and all that sort of shit. Dal Sim, yoga master from India.
He was the yoga
He was
master.
frustrating to fight.
He was.
Just because he's stretchy.
Yeah.
Yoga flame.
The double fist armor.
And then you had some cool bosses. There were 4 bosses. There was Balrog, who was a boxer. Basically Mike Tyson. Same thing. Right, same thing. He even looked like Mike Tyson.
He did, yeah.
Vega, a Spanish cage fighting ninja.
He was pretty cool.
Oh, he was hard.
He was hard to beat.
He was hard to beat.
Had the metal claw, a bit like Wolverine, almost.
Bit like Baron Dark.
Yeah.
That's a throwback. Sagat, or Sagat,
Sagat.
or Sagat. There's so many ways you pronounce it. Muay Thai master. He was from Thailand. And he would kick the piss out of you.
He would.
He was actually one of the only characters from Street Fighter 1. Yes, there is a Street Fighter 1. I'm not going to go into that with you now. That's something you probably need to Google. And the big bad guy, M. Bison, right? He's the main villain. He's a dictator from an evil organization, and it's called Shadaloo.
Ah, Shadaloo. Okay.
You didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
Now, there's a cultural impact of Street Fighter. It revolutionised the fighting game genre and introduced combo systems, so multiple punches. And I tell you what, that has been a big thing in games ever since the combo thing, right? Yeah. Distinctive characters from different parts of the world, so it had this like international feel about it.
Yeah, really.
It was really competitive. It spurred on the fighting game boom of the 90s, and damn, it was a boom. And it inspired titles like Tekken, King of Fighters, Killer Instinct, ultimately, Fatal Fury, Virtual Fighter. There's heaps of them, and also its competition in today's versus Mortal Kombat. It popularized arcade gaming as well, because I don't know about you, but I remember spending shitloads of money playing different versions of Street Fighter in the arcade. I actually really enjoyed it. I was never very good at it.
No, everywhere you went, there was a version of it somewhere, though.
Well, I was like, X-Men versus Street Fighter. We're back to X-Men, sorry. It spawned a bunch of spin-offs. There's so much merch. There's anime. There's entire animes about it. And my favourite spin-off is the film. 1994 Street Fighter, a campy action film directed by Stephen E. D'Souza, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme as Guile. He didn't have the hair, though.
He didn't know.
And Raul Julia, in his last role, unfortunately, he passed away. He was M. Bison. It was critically pissed on.
It was
No
terrible.
one liked it. I liked it. I thought it was cool. Kylie Minogue was in it as well. There's an Australian link for everybody, right? It earned $99 million worldwide. That could be wrong, Mick. It could be $99,
Yeah,
not
it could.
$99
I
million.
think so.
It became a cult favourite for some people. And again, I said Raul Julia's last performance. He had some cool lines in it. It is the only movie I can think of where there was a video game that got turned into a movie that then got turned into a video game. There is a Street Fighter the movie, the game.
Is that right? Yeah, okay.
Doesn't that?
Okay.
Isn't that's like some Inception
That
shit?
blows my mind, yeah.
That's Inception stuff.
It does. That blows my mind.
Anyway, that was the summary for Street Fighter. Just brilliant. And what are we pitting it against? Mortal Kombat, far away.
Another absolute banger
It
from
is
the
a
90s.
banger.
Another banger. So following on from Sean there, I'm just going to touch on the Mortal Kombat. So key release date. So the arcade release occurred on October 8th in 1992.
Right.
The home consoles, I mean, it was on everything. It even hit the Genesis, the Game Boy, Game Gear. Mortal Kombat was on every console you could imagine. It was in every arcade. It was like Street
huge.
Fighter. It was absolutely
huge.
everywhere.
Like genuinely huge. too.
Yeah. Yep. Earnings and commercial success. So arcade revenue alone was over $300 million by 1993. So this was 1 year later. So it made over $300 million 1 year later.
Could have been some congressional hearings that had an impact on that.
They might have maybe tailored off some, or gone the other way. We'll see.
Could have gone the other way.
Could have gone the other way. Home version sales, 6 million copies across the alternative platforms, as we mentioned. And it really helped Midway become a major player in the industry and launched a $1 billion franchise. $1 billion franchise, Mortal Kombat. So, I mean, it's still going now. What's that, 30 years later?
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 74.
Yeah,
It's up to.
yeah. So, some key notes here and some original characters from that game.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Here we
So,
go.
everyone knows these. Liu Kang.
Yeah.
Martial artist, inspired by Bruce Lee.
You don't say!
It was very, very similar. He looked similar, sounded similar. Liu Kang.
But that's a good thing. That's a
was.
good thing, right? Because Bruce Lee is pretty cool.
He was pretty cool.
He was amazing.
Johnny Cage was the Hollywood action star. Sonya Blade, the specialist forces agent. Again, she was really like the answer to who was the
Chun-Li.
To Kung-Li, yeah. Raiden, of course, the Thunder God.
Yeah, he was cool.
He was a cool character. And then my personal favourite was Scorpion, the undead ninja, famous for "Get over here!" Yeah.
I said that to my kids.
And burning people's head and burning people with his fatalities.
I didn't do that to my kids.
Sub-Zero, which of course was the ice welding ninja. He was Scorpion's rival. So Scorpion being the fire ninja and Sub-Zero being the ice ninja.
Makes sense.
Kano, the mercenary, and Black Dragon.
No
member.
one played with Kano much, did they?
No. And the bosses. Remember Goro, the big four-armed monster that you'd want to... He was like the sub-boss. And then Shang Tzu at the end, the evil sorcerer. He was the final boss.
But Goro was so much cooler than Shang Tsung. Like Goro was like a monster, whereas Shang Tsung was like just a dude.
Just a dude. The evil sorcerer would suck his
he
soul
was
out.
evil, but...
Yeah, but he wasn't as badass as Goro.
No,
Goro looked cool.
And everyone remembers Goro.
Yeah, the stomp thing, he used to fly through the roof and stomp you into the ground.
Oh, that's right.
Destroyer. So cultural impact. What was the cultural impact of this game? It was pretty big back in the day. So remembering this is back in the early 90s. So it was known for its realistic and digitized graphics, so the blood and gore, and the fatalities. Fatalities were a huge part of this game. So each character had a special ending in which they'd in some way defeat their opponent through some gory death.
Yeah.
So it sparked major controversy due to this violent content. Especially compared to the Street Fighter 2 game. So it was like the adult version versus the childish version. Let's just say. It also directly led to the US congressional hearing on video game violence in 1993. One of the main reasons for the ESRB rating system was created in 1994 as a result of this game. It became a multimedia franchise with films, TV shows, and comics, and dozens of game sequels. So much like the Street Fighter game, it launched movies and a whole range of games and spin-offs.
Yeah.
Now, jumping into the movie. So it wasn't much better than the Street Fighter movie, unfortunately. So that was released in 1995, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, and grossed over 122 million worldwide.
So more than Street Fighter?
It did, but this was later, right? Yeah, it was later.
Only a year later.
But, I mean...
Still later, yeah.
It had set the path, right? So I'm thinking maybe Street Fighter laid the
fixed
foundation.
up the problems.
Well, yeah, whether they did or not.
They didn't put Kylie Minogue in there.
No, they didn't. So Mortal Kombat, it followed Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, and Sonya Blade in the Mortal Kombat tournament to defeat Shang Tzu and save Earth. So known for its iconic soundtrack and action, the film received mixed reviews, became a cult classic and a significant video game adaptation. So I was one of those people that I didn't particularly like the movie. It kind of strayed a little bit from the game in certain areas, I thought. But overall, I loved it. Mortal Kombat was everywhere again.
All right. Well, I mean, you're clearly a Mortal Kombat fan, right?
I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan.
And it seems like I'm probably pretty clearly a Street Fighter fan. How are we going to split this? Or are we going to split this?
I don't think you can split it. They're both awesome in their own right, and they were hugely successful in their own right during that period. So
I agree. I don't dislike Mortal Kombat. Like, I think the Mortal Kombat is a fucking cracker game. It's great, but I just think that even though it was more realistic and there was more blood and gore, I think Street Fighter's impact on everything that came after it can't be understated. So I think that for me, my victory for Versus today is going to Street Fighter. I think it's Street Fighter. And
my victory, of course, is going to Mortal Kombat. So are we going to call this draw? I think we're going to have to call this a draw, right?
It's a tie, right?
It's a tie, yeah.
All right. There's no one here for a tiebreaker. Hey, if you want to be the tiebreaker, chime in on YouTube. Tell us what you think. I tell you what, it's a tough one to split. It's impossible.
It's impossible. You can't split
impossible.
it. There's no splitting it.
No, I think we're done. I think we're done with that segment. It's over. But there are a few honourable mentions, actually, Chris, that I did want to touch on. Because even though we can't split these two beasts, there is other games. We touched on Mortal Kombat, on Killer Instinct earlier, which is a great game. But I want to talk about Fatal Fury. Now, Fatal Fury was released in '91. It's a 2D fighting game in the King of Fighters universe. Not a bad game. I thought it was one of the better ones. It's sort of predates Street Fighter on the home consoles. So Fatal Fury, if you don't know what Fatal Fury is, go and have a look at that. Google that and look it up. Tekken, do you remember Tekken?
I do, yeah. Tekken, it was a big game, but it didn't grab me in the same way as these other games did.
Tekken was a game that was, I don't know what home console Tekken was on, probably Sega Saturn.
Probably.
That's why we don't know about it.
I remember it just being arcade. Yeah, it was arcade.
It was so good in the arcade.
Yeah,
so that's
arcade.
another one that I think Tekken, an underrated game and a really cool one. 3D game too, so it had that mid-90s.
PlayStation, you know, yeah. I've got a
You're right,
feeling.
it might be PlayStation. Let us know in the comments. We don't know. Virtua Fighter is the last one I wanted to mention, 93. That was a Sega game. And that was definitely on the Saturn. I know that. Because that was the only game I played with my friend.
Ah, that was it.
That was the game.
Okay.
Yeah. A major leap in graphics and gameplay. Definitely a good game. It was the 3D. It had some pretty memorable characters too. But
that guy, yeah.
Yeah, look,
that guy.
Again, great games. Fighting games. Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, though, they're the classics. They're the originals. You can't beat them. And they can't beat each other.
They can't. No, they cannot.
So,
they cannot.
All right, I'm getting hungry. Tuckshop time.
Tuckshop time.
It's Tuckshop time.
Earlier, Chris and I were talking about a certain Italian plumber.
Whoever could you be speaking about, Sean?
It's a me, a Mario.
And a Luigi.
Yeah, so we talked about Mario and Sonic and all those sort of iconic things, but today in the Tuck Shop, I thought it would be appropriate to honour the Super Mario Brothers and talk about some of the very fine Italian cuisine you could obtain from the Tuck Shop for your hard-earned dollars. So your brown paper bag goes off with its money, as we explained in episode 1. Off it goes in the basket, and if you've ordered the lasagna, or you've ordered the spaghetti bolognese, or you've ordered the pizza singles, it's coming back, and it's coming back hot. Stupidly hot. Unfathomably hot. Lava hot.
This was in the days before H&R, right? Schools, yeah. They didn't care. This thing would be 1,000 degrees. It would be molten lava by the time it got to your hot little hands there.
Literally hot little hands. You'd be burning your fingerprints off. So what would happen is, you would order, if you ordered a pizza single, for example, it would come to you returned from being microwaved, and it would come back hot as fuck. And you would take the pizza single out of its cardboard packaging. It was the red and white packaging with the green stripe pizza singles. Had little icons on it, guitars and bits and pieces. And you would pull it out of this cardboard packaging, and all the toppings were stuck to the cardboard. You didn't get any toppings.
You just got a shitty base with sauce on it.
That's all you got. And then
you bite it.
And then you go, what? You burn the inside of your gob.
And you
Chef's kiss.
Mamma
mia.
It's beautiful.
And then you would if you didn't have that, you would get, if you were looking for Italian and cheesy, you were going to go get with the lasagna, right? And the pizza and the lasagna, although they complemented each other, you either had one or the other. You never ordered both.
You couldn't go both.
You didn't do both. But you'd get this lasagna, again, as Wibbles mentioned, so hot, you take it out of your brown paper bag.
Your eyes would sweat watching it come out.
Your hands underneath the foil. It's cooking. Your hand's cooking at the same time. And then you take the cardboard lid off and the steam would burn your eyes. You've got a plastic fork and that thing is hot as fuck. You would go your whole lunchtime waiting for it to cool down. The bell rings. It's in the bin.
It's in the bin, yeah. It's done. It was too hot.
That's the end.
Yeah, it
the
was
end
too
of that.
hot.
Spaghetti bolognese, same thing. And they had names like Twister Pasta. They had all kinds of names. They had these weird things for them, and there were different brands. So every school probably had different brands.
Yeah, I'd say so. Everyone had.
Put your brands in the comments. I want to know, because we had a whole bunch of different ones. Schools Out was one of the brands.
Let us know some of your experience, guys. If you had the same thing, you opened it and you burnt your fingers or your mouth.
Share some of your hospital bills with us. We want to see that.
Anyone lose a tooth? Yeah.
You lose your tongue.
Yeah.
Couldn't speak afterwards. I remember that just not being able to eat them, essentially. They were good when they cooled down, so if you had a long lunch break, you might be able to. I actually recently found out that McCain still make the pizza singles, but they're called Little Pizza Rounders.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
I don't know. Pizza single was
it's
fine.
not the same.
Why'd you change your name
Why'd
for?
change it? Yeah, pizza singles was cool.
Burning hot cheese fritter.
Warning. Come with a warning, yeah.
They should have come with a warning. But nevertheless, that was the fine Italian cuisine that you would be accustomed to if you grew up in our age bracket as millennials back in the day, trying to get yourself some cheesy delectables.
Mamma mia.
This is a story.
Yes, this is a story. This is story time. You ready, Wibbles?
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
So we've kept our story time segments to, Australian-based, I guess, themes. So we're going to do that again. This is about the Sega Master System, especially the Sega Master System 2, and its built-in game, Alex Kidd in Miracle World, which was a huge 8-bit underdog in Australia. So in the late 1980s, video games were booming here, and kids were crowding arcades to play Sega hits like Outrun, Hang On, and a bunch of other games that Sega had, mostly car racing games, right? They were big on those. But home consoles was like the new frontier. And the NES had just been released in 1987 and had started to take an early lead. But later in that year, Sega launched the Master System, specifically the Sega Master System 2.
Yeah, that was the ticket.
That was the ticket.
We have one of these bad boys.
There is one here in my hot little hands for those watching on YouTube. I have one here. It brought the arcade experience to the home environment. Superior graphics and sound and a strong lineup of games put Sega in a position to be the edgier, more exciting alternative to the NES. Now, the NES was great, don't get me wrong, but in Australia, the Master System 2 was red hot. People were keen on it. And a big reason was because it came bundled with Alex Kidd in Miracle World, which was a quirky platformer. We'll get more into Alex Kidd very shortly. Sega's marketing targeted older kids and teens, emphasising its arcade pedigree. Fair enough. There were TV commercials which promised speed, colour and action, which it did, which is everything that Aussie kids wanted, right? We wanted that kind of thing. There was Wonder Boy, Fantasy Zone, and RPG Fantasy Star. I remember Fantasy Star.
Yeah.
I sucked at that. There was the Mickey Mouse games, and of course there was Sonic.
Sonic, yeah.
Which is Sonic 1 here. We've got a copy of that.
They built Sega on the back of Sonic, mind you.
And Sonic, it got a dedicated following with Alex Kidd and Sonic. So, yeah.
So, while the Sega never outsold the NES, the Master System found surprising success in Australia.
Yep.
It was affordable. It was widely available in stores like Kmart and Big W, so you just, mum and dad could go in. It was easily to buy because it was everywhere, and it was well supported into the 1990s, longer than any other. And in Australia, we supported it more than any other country around the world. So for many Australians, the Master System wasn't just their first console; it was really their gateway into a lifelong love of gaming. So certainly for me, that was the first real system that I had, was the Master System 2.
Same here.
And every friend I had, I think at that age, had a Master System. So that was your gateway, as I said, into the gaming world.
Definitely.
It also laid the groundwork for Sega's later success with the Mega Drive, cementing its place in the Aussie gaming history. So yeah, the Master System it really kicked it off for Sega.
Definitely, and I think the big part of it, as we did mention, the main reason, or one of the main reasons, was definitely Alex Kidd in Miracle World. Now, people call it Alex the Kid. No, it's Alex Kidd with 2 Ds. Fucks me why, but there you go. And that was released in 86 in Japan, and obviously 87 here with the Sega Master System 2. It was built into the console, like I said, which meant that parents could buy the console and no other games.
Have a game, yeah.
You literally had a game straight away out of the box. As you mentioned before, Wibbles, plug and play. You literally turn this thing on. You had to get the RF switch, of course, and change it to the right channel and fiddle fuck around.
Dial it in, yeah.
But, you could just play it straight away, which made it, such an experience for our, the millennial generation. The game itself follows Alex. Yes, his name's Alex.
He's Alex.
He's a monkey-eared boy. Of course he is.
Well, you've seen him, right? He's got those monster ears. Dumbo, they called him as well.
Dumbo.
Yeah.
I think he was one of our relatives. On a quest to save his brother and defeat the villain, Jankin the Great. Now, Jankin...
the Jankin, yeah.
Jankin is rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
That's what rock, paper, scissors is actually called. It's Jankin.
The Jankin Master.
Did you know that? There you go. It was a side-scrolling platform with vehicle levels, which was really cool, and unique mechanics like using punches instead of jumps, and you had the boss fights were Jankin fights. So you would do a rock, paper, scissors to progress to the next level. Another thing is, Alex would be chomping on something between levels.
Oh, yeah, that's right, the little cutscene, yeah.
Yeah, and what it was in the Western games, right, it was a burger. He was munching down a burger. If you played it on any of the Japanese versions, it's sushi.
Oh,
it's rice. A rice. Nuri, or what are they called? I don't know what it's called. Anyway. Known for its variety and difficulty, it was fucking hard.
It was hard, yeah. I never actually completed it. I got to the end and never completed it.
I think as kids, right, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it was like how you gauged somebody's gaming prowess, right? How far could you get in
yeah.
Alex Kidd in Miracle World?
Yeah, definitely.
I think so.
Yeah.
Now, there's no need to buy Alex Kidd because it came with the game. It came with the console. You had it from the start.
Built in.
I think most kids didn't even have any games.
No, you had one or two, and Alex, because you just used to play Alex, like because there was no save function. Remember in those old school games, you switched it off, and then you have to start all over again.
Yeah. You get to the last level, you're on the final boss, and you're playing your Jankin.
Yeah.
I've had to be careful about how I say it and what I do here. Jankin.
Jankin.
It's not the other.
Yeah.
It's a J, not a W. And you get that far, you'd lose because you picked paper. And you're fucked.
And that was it.
You're back to the start.
Yeah. Yep. So the game was fondly remembered for decades and received a modern remake in 2021. I didn't know that occurred. I couldn't even tell. I mean, that's something we'll have to throw to Mick for later, I think. You might have
cool.
to, you might have to have a look. So now while there was no need to buy a copy of Alex the Kid in Miracle World, you did not need to purchase cartridges. You did need to purchase cartridges, for other games, obviously. But a lot of us millennials couldn't afford them. And for your parents, it was expensive back in the day, and it was basically, you've got Alex the Kid, just play that, be happy with it, which you were. It wasn't like kids now, they got 25 games. Yeah, it's.
So if you already had Alex Kidd, and your mum and dad didn't buy any games, so what did you do?
You rented them.
You rented
them. You went to this thing called a video shop.
Well, there was Blockbuster, Video Easy, Network Video.
Yeah.
People might not remember Network.
Yeah.
And Civic. They were the main ones in Australia. So you had to rent games. And you would rent games and they would be notoriously difficult to play.
Yeah.
Like you would get something, you'd have 2 days to figure out how to clock it. We used to say clock.
Clock it, yeah. That was the in word. Yeah. Have you clocked that game yet? Nah, man. I'm only up to stage 3. Oh.
And then you have to return it.
Oh.
You have to return it. It's because some of those games we would rent were just so
difficult,
fucking hard. So I've got a little list here, Wibbles, I'll go through for you, of some of the honourable mentions of the hardest games, I reckon.
They made hard games back in those days.
All right, here's a good one. Battletoads.
Oh, yeah. I remember this one.
Throwback to our anthropomorphic cartoon characters from episode 2. But I'll tell you what, Battletoads from 91, infamous for how hard it is. Especially the turbo tunnel level where you're flipping along on a side scroller on a machine, jumping things. It was fast moving, it was hard. Great game, lots of fun. I remember having some Battletoads twisty Bendham toys. They were cool back in the day. But yeah, such a high challenge curve. Just too fucking hard, man. Too hard.
Kids these days,
cool game.
They wouldn't play it.
Here's one for you. Ninja Gaiden. On the NES.
Gaiden,
1988.
Yeah.
It's a good game. You're thinking ninja stars and you're doing cool shit and you're jumping around on platforms. Very hard though. Very fast paced. Tough boss fights. Remember there were some really hard boss fights and you'd be cornered. You'd be fucked. No chance. Frustrating. No checkpoints. No save states. None of that stuff.
No, they didn't have any of that fancy
Long
stuff.
before that shit.
You just played start to finish. That was it.
And if you died, there's no continues.
Start again.
And I know there are games where they would say, hold down B and push the left arrow and that's all shit.
So, getting off topic here, and I know it's not in here, but do you remember Contra? Contra was one of those impossible games as well.
And you would say, we'll play together.
Yeah.
2-player Contra.
Yeah.
And you got your machine gun and you're like, I've upgraded my gun.
One hit, you were dead. That was it.
Any game that's a one-hit death.
Yeah. It was just a nightmare.
But, it made you better at games.
Oh, yeah.
You had no choice.
You had dedication. Yeah, you had to have skill.
Oh, here's one. Echo the Dolphin on the Mega Drive.
I remember that game,
92.
yeah.
Look, I didn't play it at the time, but it was a popular game. You controlled a dolphin and you went around and it had cool music. I remember the music was cool. Creepy kind of underwater stuff, which I really enjoyed. My favourite underwater music was by David Wise for Donkey Kong's Aquatic Ambience. You might have heard that earlier in the podcast.
I've heard it.
Just secretly. I don't know where it fits in.
Listen out for it if you know
But Echo the Dolphin, mate, that game, too hard. I rented that game. I didn't even get past the first level. Too hard. Metroid on the NES, 1986,
hard.
also a hard game, but a groundbreaking game.
It was.
Look, I really quite enjoyed Metroid.
So did I liked the Metroid series.
And Super Metroid.
Yeah,
so
Super
there's both.
Yeah.
Really hard, but the soundtrack was so cool. And
But that's what I'm saying. These hard games, they made you sit there and you really had to concentrate and play the game. Like it's not like today's games where you get in there, you mash, and you live through. No. You get hit, you die. That's it, son. You're starting again.
It was just too hard.
Yeah.
But you played him anyway.
You played him anyway.
And that gave
That's
him a
all you had.
playability. Like,
Yeah.
he'd come back because you'd be like, well, I only got to level 4. I want to get further. And there were 67 levels and you never finished it. But it was all right. It was still fun. And Metroid's a big franchise.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Unlike the game we're about to talk about in the next segment, they were at least playable. So buckle yourselves in for a rewind.
Yeah.
We're going to look at something we missed back in the day. We know about it now. It's coming up for you. Only you. You will enjoy.
Moments away.
You will enjoy this particular segment
And
of
if
Rewind.
anyone's ever beaten this next game, you need to ring us. Get in contact.
You can be on the
Yeah.
show,
We'll
every
bring you
single
in.
show
Absolutely.
for the rest of all time.
All time.
We're going into Rewind.
Now it's time to be kind and rewind.
Well, do we have something special lined up for you today? So this one's Action 52 and the Cheetahmen. So in 1991, Active Enterprises, led by Vince Perry, the man with the vision, released Action 52. So what was Action 52, you may ask? It was an ambitious idea to offer 52 games on a single cartridge.
Amazing. Sounds incredible. Now, look, full disclosure, we know about Action 52. We are familiar.
We're aware of it,
with
yeah.
We know that it exists. Fortunately or unfortunately, we'll get to that part of it later. We know its existence. We know about it because of the internet. God bless the internet, right? Oh, so good. But we've never played it. And the main reason is because, they never put it out in Australia.
No, they didn't.
Maybe there was a reason for that.
I think so. There's
We'll
a
get
strong
to that
reasoning.
too, I think.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, Chris and I are about to go and
Let's get our toes wet. Yeah.
Let's go and play Cheetahmen.
I say, dear chaps, shouldn't you go on a diet?
Are you talking to me? Maybe if these guys would make these holes bigger, I could fit easier, know what I'm saying?
Hey man, I'll help you out.
No worries, no.
Come on, guys, we have work to do. We come from the Action 52 game world where every game is...
Yeah, we're talking action and lots of it. We got space, dragon, adventure, even war games.
Yeah, dude, we even got rescue games and man, they're smooth like ice.
Hey, what about you guys?
Oh yeah, we're in there too, the Cheetahmen.
Yes, but that's another story. If you want the ultimate game challenge, you have to get Action 52.
Yeah, it's so cool. 52 games in one, and you can even play it on Nintendo. Man, it's awesome. Get yours now.
Now playing at a store near you.
It was marketed as the ultimate collection, this Action 52 cartridge, but the reality was far from that promise. The games are mostly low quality, filled with glitches, poor controls, subpar graphics. The standout title, and sadly it is the standout, was Cheetahmen, which was intended to be the crown jewel of the collection, a side-scrolling action game, as you saw, starring anthropomorphic cheetahs. Unfortunately, Cheetahmen was as disappointing as the rest of the collection, with clumsy mechanics, frustrating gameplay, I hope not, we haven't played it yet, and an abrupt, unfinished ending. Well, we know there's no ending,
There's
so there
no
is no
ending,
ending
yeah.
to the game. Now, despite its poor reception, the Cheetahmen brand was revived in 1992 with a sequel. Fucking
How did
why?
they get off the ground?
Cheetahmen 2,
Yeah.
which was released, maybe that's another rewind segment,
I
but
think so,
released
yeah.
in limited quantities,
Yeah, yeah.
probably for a reason.
Absolutely.
And became a cult classic,
Classic, yeah, okay.
due to its rarity and so bad its good appeal. Though Action 52 was a commercial failure, and I can probably see why, both the game and Cheetahmen gained notoriety in the world of retro gaming, remembered as a cautionary tale of ambition without execution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ambition, no execution. That's key.
Yeah, Action 52 was originally released for the NES in 1991, later also ported to the Sega Mega Drive? Well, no, the Genesis.
The Genesis, yeah.
We didn't get it here in Australia, never made the Mega Drive. That was in 93.
Yeah.
These two versions are most well known, though the game is primarily remembered for the original NES release. Yeah.
Now, apparently there is a story for Cheetahmen, which is, it's a fairly simple action-adventure tale. So the game's premise, if you can believe there is one, centers on a group of genetically enhanced cheetahs that go by the name of Alpha,
Yep.
Apollo, and Ares. So, who are tasked with saving the world from evil forces. I'm not sure who those evil forces are, but that's what they're about. They essentially anthropomorphic superhero-like cheaters, each with different abilities that they can use to battle their enemies.
Right.
Right. Is that what you took away from the game, or?
Well, it says it's Slick Mick said Alpha. I think it's Hercules.
Hercules, yeah, it could
They're
be
all
Hercules.
Greek gods.
Greek gods, yeah, put it that way. So
That are cheaters.
Yeah, cheaters, yeah, cheater Greek gods. So the Cheetahmen comic was created to promote Action 52 games. It's a low-budget, independent comic that offers a simple story about the heroic Cheetahmen. So battling the evil forces, of course.
Heroes with spots.
Heroes with spots. Bit like a spotty man. The comic's plot is basic, focusing on the action and introducing the characters' personalities, but it lacks the polish of professional comics. The catchphrase "Living large"
and there's a fist swing thing going.
Living large. So that is featured prominently in the comics, reflecting the characters' bold and over-the-top personalities. So it's no cowabunga. It really didn't compare. It didn't compare. So it's not well known, obviously. The comics gained a cult following. There's that word again, which means it hit the shit list. And so it's got a cult following among retro gaming fans, adding to the Cheetahman's quirky place in the gaming history. So details review, it's completely entire. It's unplayable.
But we've heard it's unplayable. We keep hearing all this.
Yeah.
We've not played it.
Yeah.
Now, just again, we're going to go full disclosure. We do not have a copy of Action 52. Fuck me, I wish I did.
Yes.
Just for the fact that I'd have one. But we are going to give it a red hot crack. We have a jailbroken Wii, as I mentioned earlier in the show. We have a ROM, which we're going to use emulation to play. God. We're going to play Cheetahmen.
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm not.
I've been trying to track down a copy of the comic for my comic collection.
Oh, yeah.
I can't find it anywhere. I also, in my attempts to locate a copy of Cheetahmen the comic, found that they did have intentions to make action figures for it as well.
It would be cool, just from a nostalgia point of view, to have both of those. Like the first comic and some action figures would be pretty
I don't know if
cool,
they made the action figures.
Oh, they didn't?
I think it was just nah, they didn't get that far, did they? It was a prototype or some such bullshit.
It was a concept.
Bullshittery. Yeah. Look, we're going to go away now. We're going to play... try and play.
No, we're going to play. We're going to complete it.
The
we're going to clock it.
We're going to clock it.
Yeah, we're going to
clock Cheetahmen.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, have you ever clocked Cheetahmen?
Yeah, with Ares.
Oh, mate, I did it with Hercules.
Ah, yeah, okay.
We'll see how we go.
See you at level 3.
Yeah.
Make your selection now.
It's done. We've played it.
Whew, what an experience!
No. We've not played it. We've tried to play it, and it's fucking dreadful. It's unplayable.
It's unplayable. It's horrendous. It's worse than I expected. Absolutely. I don't know how it could be worse, but I've heard how bad it is, but it's honestly...
Now we know.
Now we know. It's buggy. Everything lags.
There's glitches. The hit detection's fucking dreadful.
It's slow.
You can't jump properly. You can't land properly. You can't hit properly. You get hit, and it's one-hit deaths. We bitched about that earlier.
Yeah.
Back to the start of the level. Yeah, look, it is poor controls. It's erratic. It's inconsistent. The physics are fucked. There's bugs. There's glitches. The enemy placement shit. There's no checkpoints.
Nothing.
It just ends.
Yeah.
We got to level 3. You're fighting something. It looks like a vulture or some shit. Game ends.
Game ends. That was it. Yeah.
We got through what there is. I think. Like we managed to get through what exists of Cheetahmen.
And then you just fall into this void, and that's it. That's the end of the Cheetahmen experiences. Yeah.
Lights, camera, failure.
And that's Cheetahmen.
Cheetahmen. All right, we've got to give it a score.
Yeah.
So let's pass it over to Slick Mick, and we'll do the Wibble scope and the Shaunometer. Fire away, Slick Mick.
Sure, let's do it.
Crank up the Wibble scope. Okay, go ahead, Chris. Pull the lever and give us your Wibble score. How many Wibbles out of a possible 4? That's a disgraceful score of only 1 Wibble.
Well, there you have it, Sean. I've given it a 1. I mean, it was absolutely diabolical. Probably one of the worst games I've ever played. And we played some shit games over the years. But this one, I think, tops it. I mean, the fact that you couldn't even finish it, yeah, it's a 1, man. No.
And look, the fact that we had to work hard to play a shitty, unplayable game to get that far.
Just so you know, we played that for three and a bit hours, and we only
got nowhere.
Yeah.
And then we found out that's all there is.
That's all there is. Yeah.
1. You gave it a 1. Look, I'm going to give it a score. It's time for the Shaunometer. Fire away, Slick Mick.
Jumpstart the Shaunometer. All right, go on, Sean. Push the button. Let's have your Shawnee score. How many Shawnees out of a possible 4? That's a score of 2 Shawnees.
So I gave it 2 Shawnees.
I don't know.
I'll explain myself. Hold on.
Yeah.
Before anyone roasts me, and they will, in the comments and send me messages and tell me I'm an idiot, I've given it 2 Shawnees as opposed to 1 Wibble, and the reason being the ambitiousness of it.
You're rolling that. That's where your tea's coming in. The ambition is ambitious. Look, was it the 52 cartridge ambition or the ambition of?
If you want to play another 51 games that are worse, knock your socks off. Yeah. The idea was good, right?
That's debatable, but yeah. This is why we've got this. This is why we have this.
That's why there's a rating system. Yeah. Look, I've given it 2 Shawnees. I'll stand by my 2 Shawnee rating only because I can appreciate the effort that went into the concept of Cheetahmen. I mean, it is the Ninja Turtles, but as cheetahs. It's the Street Sharks, but cheetahs. Actually, Street Sharks came after. Yeah. It is an anthropomorphic bunch of cheetahs that just run around as ninjas and they protect you. I don't understand the games master, action games master. No. He's dragged into a TV by a robotic hand. You never hear about the robotic arm again.
There's no more story.
There's no more context to that. Look, they had a lot of ideas and the execution was pretty poor. So I think it just scrapes the 2. I'm giving it a 2.
Okay. Look, as long as you can sleep at night with that, I'm happy.
Oh, mate, you don't have to worry about me sleeping at night. I tell you what, I dream about Cheetahmen in my sleep. It's amazing. Can't wait. I want to play Cheetahmen too.
No, you can have it. You can have it.
I thought we might give that a run now. We've got another 6-7 hours before it's next week. So let's go do Cheetahmen 2.
All right, let's give it a go.
No, we're not doing it. No. If we do that, I'll probably go insane. Yeah. I'm out. That's our rewind segment for this episode. It's time for our final thoughts.
Here's our final thoughts.
All right, thanks, Mick. It is time for our final thoughts. It's been a real roller coaster.
It has been a roller coaster, yeah.
Mate, some games that we love, some games that we hate. Cheetahmen was amazing.
Cheetahmen, that was an experience I will not forget.
We do have a couple of questions, though.
Oh, yeah?
From our... I don't know why we do this to ourselves.
They're never good.
They're never good.
Yeah.
We filtered them down to two of the best.
Yes,
best.
to
Sorry,
the
best.
best.
We have Cowboy Man Dan from Instagram, and he's asked...
Was he from the Village People? Was that Cowboy Man Dan?
I think that could be.
Yeah.
He's asked, why did Sean diss Townsville last episode?
Why did you diss Townsville on the last episode?
Because
Sean?
I've been to Townsville.
Right, I haven't, so I don't know. Okay,
I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it at that.
Right.
Who we got next, Sean?
There's another one here. Robot Aaron on X, formerly Twitter.
Right.
He's asked Chris, how can I meet Slick Mick?
Well, the answer to that is really simple. If you listen to the start of the show, you can't because he's not real. So, yeah, no meeting Slick Mick, unfortunately.
He's an AI-generated robot.
Yeah, that gives us questionable information at best.
At
Questionable
best.
information
It's very
at best.
questionable. Look, there's been some great stuff today. I've had a great time.
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
email us directly if you didn't know this. It's at Millennial Memories Podcast, all one lowercase word, Millennial Memories Podcast at gmail.com. Now, on the next episode of Millennial Memories,
What have we
we are
got?
going to take a look at millennial music, right? But not just the acts that made the music, but the formats.
The formats, okay.
We've got vinyl, tape, CD, MP3, and streaming. That's a lot of different stuff. We're going to cover all those. We're going to talk about the acts too.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about your favourites, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC.
I can't wait for that one. But that's it for today's episode of Millennial Memories.
Yeah.
Thanks for the support and for joining us on another nostalgic journey.
Again, had a blast. Great time. Please hit subscribe. If you like what we're doing, and even if you don't,
yeah.
hit it
Give us
anyway.
feedback. Who cares?
What else are you
Yeah.
doing? Just watch it on YouTube or listen to it on Spotify. It's not hard.
Follow us on all the tubes, all the X's, all the things that are social media.
We're on all of them.
Yeah.
Well, all the good
And
ones.
tell us what you want to hear. Give us some memories, and if you got something great, we'll get you on the show. So, thanks a lot. Hit the link and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, if you've got suggestions and corrections, we don't want to hear it. No, sorry, we do want to hear it. We do want to hear it. Maybe. And we'll see what we can do about that. Stay tuned. We will be back. We will do this again, even if you don't want us to.
Absolutely.
We're doing it anyway.
Yeah,
all right?
we will.
Thanks for listening. Over to you, Slick Mick. Let's wrap this thing up.
Thanks, Slick.
That's all for this episode of Millennial Memories. Don't forget to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, and YouTube. Until next time, stay rad.